So today we're going to look at the question of, does God exist? But I'd like to point out something to you first before we dive in. The only reason why you have this question is because you already have the answer to the question. It's just that you either haven't accepted what you have received, because if you accept what you have received, whether you've heard it from this spiritual teacher or another spiritual teacher, eventually the question comes to an end. And when the question comes to an end, you also come to an end. So let's dive in to, does God exist? Once the Buddha himself and they had this question, and then he remained maybe silent because they understood that, okay, it's the mind that is asking. But in this video, we're going to actually answer the question. We're not going to play this this game anymore. So the root from where this actual video stemmed from was, it was a very deep question which I had on my journey. And I wanted to know. The problem with this question is, if you want to know, you have to have a direct experience beyond the body. Because if you have an experience within your body, it's part of the whole entire play of life. It can be imagination. It can be something from, an emotion you may feel, or, something like intuition, or, there can be any number of reasons where eventually you get to a point, maybe through even experience, right? You get to a point where you kind of find an answer, or you have some form of acceptance of, okay, maybe something like this actually does exist. So in order for that answer to be really satisfied, that question to kind of really, in order for you to really have that question evaporated, where you never even ever ask that question again, is to have a direct experience beyond the physical. Now, fortunately, that has happened to me, and I was able to find this answer out. And the answer to the question is, it's kind of it's not either, and it not can be. It's a yes and it's a no, and I'm going to explain how it's both. So, we may read scriptures, we may listen to spiritual teachers, but we are trying to get something, right? We are trying to obtain something to say that I know, right? That knowing, that one which wants to know, is your mind. And to experience what is God or the creator, the word God is a very misused word. And today it's either some man sitting with a beard up there, or it's some person, or it's some personality or something human. It's something like that, whatever it is. How is it a yes that there is a creator, right? How is it that? We'll look at that first, and then we'll look at how is it not. So there is something that is kind of beyond the experiencing structure. Now, what do I mean by beyond the experiencing structure? Everything that you have experienced in your life, there are most intense moments and your most dullest moments. If you're able to go back to those experiences through your memory and kind of remember how did it feel, right? How did those moments actually feel? If you experience some horror in your life, how did it feel? That whole entire structure is, or that which is experiencing is not you, right? So by trying to go with that kind of approach and say that I know, or I can explain, or I can talk about it, or I have the answer, is part of the experiencing structure. What you are when you transcend that character who, whatever your name is, or the personality, or whatever you achieved in life, and all your likes, dislikes, everything, right? The ego, basically, the ego self. They call it the false I. This false I, in order to experience what is called as God, has to die. Now there is a in the west, in the eastern type of the eastern part of the world, they they may refer to it as ego death, basically, and that has to die in order for what you are to rise from the debris. Basically, it's basically the cloud that's blocking you, and in that there can be a direct, I wouldn't call it experience, but we're calling it experience for lack of words, a direct seeing, you can say, right? Seeing is a little bit more of a better vocabulary. Like if you've been watching this channel and following this content for some time, you would understand that language, we can only go a certain point with language. But why do we still continue speaking is because the words that are being uttered here may click with one or two individuals. It may not click with everybody. And then maybe you might come across another spiritual teacher that will say the same thing, but the different words that he or she may be using may kind of click with you, right? So just keep that in mind. So this experiencing structure that we call as myself, we looked at Jesus, for instance, right? Um, he died on the cross, right? And he rose from the dead. So a person that has that kind of, I wouldn't say capability, but for something like to happen to an individual, he definitely was something that, something beyond that was kind of realized. And the same is also true for you as well. So the spiritual process is a process of, getting up on the cross and dying, basically. Dying and then rising from the dead. In Zen, they say, there's a saying called dying before you die, basically. So that is one way of how to actually find that answer for yourself, because I can give it to you now and I am going to talk about it. But the direct experience, we're calling it a direct experience for lack of words. That is one way of how it can happen. Now, there is and I'm going to put a disclaimer out here. Don't take these words and believe these words from this point of the video specifically. So this is the closest words that I could gather, and it's a kind of a common language, and it's better than any other words that I could think of. So there is a primordial conscious awareness that is there, that is kind of dreaming this whole entire reality, what we're calling it. We can't call this an illusion. I know in the Bhagavad Gita, if you've read that, Krishna speaks of Maya. Everything is Maya and illusion and stuff. And you go walk on the road and get knocked by a car. Let's see if that is really an illusion for you. It's not. So these kinds of teachings were given to disciples in a very intimate kind of way. You don't just speak about it. The Bhagavad Gita was heard by somebody else outside of that conversation between Arjuna and Krishna. And when an ascended master is there, when a representation of the creator in the material is there, he makes sure that the people that are there within the proximity are of a certain level. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because it's the whole entire spiritual teachings and stuff. They've gotten completely scattered everywhere, misunderstood. So the consciousness itself wants me to kind of deliver this um, in its absolute form, basically, of what it actually is, not like meddle with it and create a following on YouTube or whatever. It's not that. It's to put this completely out and open the doorway for people if they'd like to come and maybe go on a retreat or something where it allows them, gives them something where they can. I'm basically giving you like a little key, basically, so you can kind of open the doorway so that you can have the direct experience yourself, and your spiritual journey will basically stop there, hopefully. So with these teachings, right, there's an absolute primordial conscious awareness that is there and is present, and that is dreaming the whole entire creation into existence. That is referred to as God, the creator. Now, I can go into my birth and stuff like that, because even how I came into this world is kind of supernatural. I wasn't really born. I entered with full awareness of coming into the body way after. I'm not sure what duration it was, but the body was kind of fully formed. It looked, from the outside perspective entering in, it looked like about 2-3 months or so. I tried to pinpoint a timeline with my biological mother, and I tried to kind of pinpoint. It doesn't really matter, but yeah. So there was this kind of voice kind of that was there and said, do this one thing, and today we are doing this. So I just wanted to kind of share that. There's nothing really special about me, because every single person that comes on this platform that is here and present now, consciousness is awaking through you. So the fact that you're here, it's awaking through you, not through me. Basically, I'm just a mirror that's basically telling you on the other side, you are me, basically. And that's basically how it's a yes. It's a yes in that sense. Now, if we look at how it's a no, right? How is there God? There's no such thing as God, right? The idea, the concept, the belief itself, everything that you've learned, understood, the whole thing, that does not exist. It never existed in the first place. Language was kind of used as a way to kind of give you a feel to know that there's something that is beyond that. It's not the words. So you have to kind of throw away everything that you kind of learned about it, because it's not it. In the eastern side of the world, they said it very beautifully. Now, this mustn't be misunderstood. They've used a word. Now, this is a word. It's not a being, or it's not a person that existed many years ago. They use a word called Shiva. Now, Shiva does not mean the god that in the Hindu culture, right? Forget about that definition. That word translates to that which is not, right? So everything that is, basically, that you can grasp, right, is not it. So the word Shiva was kind of used in Hinduism as towards the ultimate creator. So everything you can think of, you've learned of, you can imagine, you've experienced, it's not that. Because even that, what actually exists, you can't even say it exists, because this part of the question is it doesn't exist. There's no such thing as God. That whole thing is irrelevant. So that is basically how it's both. And you may be thinking, maybe I've left you more confused than you began with, or maybe I provided some clarity. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, that question is completely irrelevant. Whether something exists or doesn't exist is not the point. Whether you've had a direct experience or you've had an awakening beyond the physical that changes your whole life, changes your projection of life, makes you feel liberated while you're here, and allows you to move freely through life with the least amount of resistance, is more important than whether God exists or he doesn't exist. You know, if God does exist, then you are finished. All the bad things you've done, you are completely gone. God doesn't exist, and the Buddha played this game with his disciples, and God doesn't exist, then, after you die, that's it. And that's the end of you. And that is true. When you die, there's no soul consciousness, you going to get rebirth and reincarnation. You can throw the whole thing out of it, because that's absolute nonsense. There is no such thing as reincarnation. The reason why there's no such thing as reincarnation, and J. Krishnamurti put it in a very beautiful way. I'll just say what he said, because it's better than what I was going to think of saying. J. Krishnamurti said the Indian people, he said this along the line, said the Indian people have invented something called reincarnation. That was actually U.G. Krishnamurti. And J. Krishnamurti said Indians believe in something called reincarnation, and they fail to question what is that which reincarnates. That which reincarnates is not you. So when death happens to you as an individual, you die, and that's the end of you. So thank you for watching, and hopefully this video has helped. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll see that if there's any kind of question that I find that kind of common that's not on this channel or I haven't answered before, I'll be more than happy to definitely dive into that, specifically if it can, be a longer video format, which kind of provides that direct nature. So thank you.